First up, though, let's talk to Sian Griffiths, education editor at the Sunday Times, who joins us now. Good morning to you, Sian.
Morning, Julia.
Now, first question I'm ruthlessly asking everyone today. Did you do A-levels and how did you do?
I did do A-levels. I did A-levels ages ago, and I got 2 A's and a C.
Goodness, there's been a lot of A grades on this show today. Everyone's been looking at me in horror every time I ask that question. Now, how important are A-levels? Now, we know that they're important for getting into university, but now we know that through clearing, there are 30,000 vacant university places to choose from right now. A lot of students who don't get not just don't get top grades, don't get the grades they were predicted, whether it was 3 C's or 3 A's, have got a very good chance of getting a good place on a good course at a good university.
Absolutely, they have. I mean, it's a fantastic year to be a student who just misses their grades, because it's very likely that the university that you've got an offer from will accept you, probably if you miss your offer by 1 or 2 grades. As you say, it's a bumper year in clearing, 30,000 university courses to choose from, and that's partly because the number of applicants have fallen to the lowest level since tuition fees went up to £9,250 in 2012. So, yeah, a good time. It's a buyer's market out there, and the only thing I would say is just be careful, take your time, make sure it's a course you really want to go to. Don't just choose a course because you desperately want to go to university. It has to be something you want to do. Look at the employment.
Well, also has to be something, it has to be something that's actually going to lead to a job. I mean, at the end of the day, You're going to come out with 50 grand's worth of debts. You're going to have to pay those off but probably a good idea to actually get a job that enables you to do that.
That's absolutely right. And in fact, I did an interview with an education expert last week, and they were saying, take your parents along to Open Day and listen to their pragmatic and sensible advice. Because when it comes to choosing degree courses, I mean, their parents are quite good at kind of actually trying to figure out, is there going to be a job at the end of this? And, are you likely to drop out of it because it's really not something
I have to say, though, I don't think you should be taking your parents along to Open Day. I really think that we need to be giving the advice at home and giving a bit of wisdom. But I think we're encroaching a little bit too much on our teenagers' lives on that front. But look, let's talk about the A-levels that students have done this year. Look, there are lots of people who don't do A-levels. And in fact, certainly that my day and your day, in fact, most of the people sitting in the studio, most people didn't do A-levels. My husband left school at 16, didn't do A-levels. It's completely the norm. Loads of people are tweeting and saying, I didn't do A-levels. Life's treated me very nicely, thank you. But when you are taking A-levels, it is the be-all and end-all. And obviously, students have to stay on to school to 18 now, so far more people are taking A-levels. But this is a whole new A-level course that everyone's taking. They've been completely redesigned. Lots of the subjects, coursework and the modules and things, they've all been axed. It's all part of the package of reforms from the Education Secretary, as he was then at the time, Michael Gove. There was a whole concern at the time from universities that basically, they'd no way of telling the difference between the good and the bad students. They had no way of knowing how well a student had really done because so much of it was coursework. Now it's all about how you're doing the exam on the day, but quite hard to predict exam questions and the like if there haven't been any past papers. So the government has the exam bodies, told by the government, let's be honest, have been told to sort of make sure that isn't a factor, haven't they?
That's a fantastic summary of what's going on, Julia. And of course, these exam reforms, these A-level exam reforms, only apply in England, so they just don't apply in Wales, they don't apply in Scotland. So I think there's also a particular concern that, why should English students be disadvantaged? Because they're the only ones who've had to do these new tough exams. But I must say this morning, I'm sitting back thinking, well, that was all a bit pointless, wasn't it? I mean, if the whole point of having these A-level reforms was to have fewer kids getting the top grades and, making everything tougher, then lowering the pass mark to make sure that the same percentages of kids get the same, kind of proportion of grades as last year and the year before that. What was the point, really? What was the point of putting the teachers?
But I mean, I can understand, and I know some young people, got some friends who are doing A-levels now, and I can really understand why, it would feel very unfair that, when they go to an employer in a few years' time and they've got B's, but they would have got A's if they'd done their exams a year earlier. It's a bit unfair that they won't look like they're a top student when in fact they're just as good as a student who's also making an application for that job who's got an A grade. But you say at some point this has to stop. This all must have A's thing. But you and I both know that we talk about what universities do. We talk about what Ofqual or what the exam boards want to do. Fundamentally, this is all about the politicians, isn't it? And we're talking to the Education Secretary Damien Hines later in the show. But the exam, how kids do in their exams and the exams that they study for, it's all decided by politicians.
Yeah, absolutely. And you say at some point, all must have A and A-star grades. Well, 26%. It's a very high proportion. I mean, is that really ever going to stop? I mean, it's going to be a very, very brave Secretary of State for Education who pulls the plug on that, because the backlash from parents and everybody will be huge. So I suspect that what's going on this year will carry on going on. The proportions will be held. What they call comparable outcomes will continue, into the future. I don't think Damien Hines is going to say anything different when he talks to you today.
And yet we are in a situation, you say, it's in everyone's interest. The students, look, undoubtedly, we're not having a go at the students. They're working hard. They're just doing the work they've been told to do and to the best standard they can. It's not their fault if they're not being taught perhaps as wide or as in-depth a curriculum as we are seeing in many other comparable countries where the people, unfortunately, they're going to have to be competing for jobs in the coming years. The parents want their kids to have good grades. The teachers want them to have good grades. It makes them look better. Head teachers, the university, it's in everyone's interest, apart from the poor sods who in a few years' time have to employ these people and are trying to work out whether or not they've got any qualifications that are worthwhile employing.
Well, one of the big things that's going on at the moment is that there's a huge concern among inspectors that, schools are teaching to the test, that everybody's become obsessed with exam scores, with A-level results, with GCSE scores, and that all those other qualities that you need to thrive in life are actually being neglected, So art, music, drama, sport, all those things that teach you how to work in teams, how to be creative, how to follow your passions if you're not very academic. They're being neglected in our schools. And the worry is that we're turning out kids who, yes, can regurgitate a mark scheme, but can they actually cope in a workplace? Do they have those skills to really thrive in the workplace? And I feel terrible because all those A-level students out there today picking up their grades have worked incredibly hard.
They haven't all. They have. Can we stop? Can we stop this complete nonsense? Not everyone has done well. Not everyone is clever, and not everyone works hard. Can we all? Can we all just stop this madness?
But lots of them getting very good grades today have done very well,
yes.
and some of them not getting very good grades, but getting the best that they could get have done well.
This is it. You see,
today.
When I did my A levels, and we're talking about what was it back in 1987, that I can distinctly remember. I had really good friends at Sixth Form College, and being really delighted because they got their 3 Cs, and that was what they'd been aiming for. And they'd worked really hard, and they did really well, and we were congratulating other people who got different grades. And there was absolutely at that time really no expectation that everyone was just walking around with A grades.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic, isn't it?
Very, very different time. Sian Griffiths, always a pleasure to speak to you, education editor at the Sunday Times.